Hello there everyone and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast. My name is Gideon and in this episode we are talking about enjoying the mundane. Now, I think it's fair to say that we all, listening to this podcast, and including myself, live relatively normal lives. And what I mean by that is that we follow a routine, don't we? Whether we go to work, we go to school, we look after our home, whatever we do throughout the week, we follow a routine. It's what would be considered a normal life. And you might have an incredible job. You might do something absolutely amazing every day. But within that, there is still routine. There are still habits that we follow. And that's what I mean by living a normal life. But in comparison, now the world seems to offer so much in the way of entertainment, lavish holidays, incredible cars, amazing places to go and see. And I think sometimes what can happen is because all of that is out there, particularly when you're scrolling on social media and what entertainment shows us, you can think that the normality of life, the routine, the habits can seem a little bit boring, can seem a little bit pointless. But I don't think that's true. I think we can enjoy the normality of life. The mundane elements of our daily routine aren't to be looked over. So we're going to look at that today. And of course, the purpose of this podcast, as always, is to present the English language to you in a relaxed and natural way. So we're going to look at vocabulary, we're going to do some reading practice, and of course, you'll have a chance just to listen along to real British English. But I also hope as well that we can come away from this podcast just, looking at the little things in life with perhaps a kinder eye. So we're going to elaborate on that a little bit more in a moment. We're going to look into what this word mundane even means. We're going to look at that in detail. Then we're going to read a really interesting article on the mundane things of life. And are they really that bad, or are they something to enjoy a little bit more? So I hope you're doing well, as always. I hope you've had a good week wherever you are in the world and whatever you have been doing. Thank you for watching this podcast, as always, or listening on Spotify. If you are new here, my name is Gideon. I'm an English teacher from just outside of London, and I create podcasts to help you improve your real, natural, and authentic English, just to best prepare you for real life situations. So when you come over here to good old England and you're speaking to British people, you're more prepared. It's not just that textbook English, so you might as well give it a subscribe. You have literally nothing to lose. Before we get into it, I want to tell you something amazing that I saw on Monday evening. I went to see the incredible Hans Zimmer live at the O2 in London. I actually went with my mum. It's been a while since I've just spent a bit of one-on-one time with Mother Lum. My last name's Lum, that's why I called her Mother Lum. That's not her full name. We don't just call her Mother Lum. That's not her name. That's irrelevant. But we had a night out together. We went for some dinner and we went to see Hans Zimmer live. And it was truly an experience. It was absolutely incredible. So I'm actually going to talk about it a little bit more in next week's episode, which is going to be the December Natter. And I'm just going to dive into that experience with you a bit, because it really was probably one of the most incredible live performances I've ever seen. So if you're not familiar with Hans Zimmer, he's the guy behind the soundtracks of films like Gladiator, Lion King, Interstellar, Inception. He creates these magnificent soundscapes that really make the movie. Works a lot with the director Christopher Nolan. Absolutely incredible composer. And from what I saw of that evening, just an amazingly nice and genuine guy, full of passion. So yeah, we're actually going to talk about that a little bit more in next week's episode. But it was amazing. It was a Monday evening. It was absolutely incredible. The O2 is an event space in London, in Greenwich. They've got like shops and restaurants there, but inside they have this what's called the O2 Arena. I think it fits about 22,000 people. It's a brilliant venue. So if you're ever coming to London, I do recommend, just having a look at what events are coming up, what people are performing there. You never know who you might stumble across. And if you're lucky, be able to get some tickets for them. So yeah, apart from Hans Zimmer on a Monday evening, on a school night, which was a rarity, absolutely incredible, my week has been pretty mundane. It has been normal. There's not been much different. And sometimes we look at that and we think, just another week, just another grind of a week, working and then the weekend. And it is agreed, sometimes that gets a bit monotonous. Sometimes it gets boring. But the reality is we've got to do it. We've got to go to work. We've got to follow routines. We've got to go to university. We've got to go to school. So is it possible just to enjoy the mundane things in life? What do we mean by that? Well, the word mundane describes the ordinary, everyday parts of life. The things that we do so often that we hardly notice them. These are the routines, habits and tasks that make up most of our days. And this is individual for all of us, isn't it? But it might be making the bed, washing the dishes, cooking, tidying, commuting, checking emails, going on your phone, playing games, whatever it is. When we talk about mundane things, they aren't exciting. They aren't dramatic. They're just part of our routine. They're part of our life. But they are the steady background of life that keeps everything running. And what I mean by that is your routine in the morning. What is it? You wake up, maybe you have a glass of water, maybe you do a bit of reading, maybe you make a coffee, then you progress to that, maybe you have a wash, have a shower, have a bath, brush your teeth, then you get ready for work. You follow the same pattern, don't you? You follow the same routine, the same habitual activities. And we don't think much of them really, do we? But if we weren't to do them, the day wouldn't happen. They are the background of life that keeps our day running. And what's interesting, when we think about this term mundane, it doesn't have to be a negative term. Because mundane activities like that, making the bed, washing the dishes, whatever it is, can actually be calming and grounding and relaxing because they're predictable, because they're familiar. If something is predictable, we know what's going to happen. There's no shock, there's no worry, there's no fear, there's no anxiety, because we generally know what's going to happen. And it's interesting, this word comes from Latin mundanus, meaning belonging to the world. And if we think about that definition, it hints at perhaps its original sense, the ordinary, belonging to the world, earthly side of life, and in contrast, as opposed to the rare or extraordinary moments. So we could kind of sum it up by saying that the mundane is everything that is normal, repeated, and consistent. The small, everyday things that, in the background, structure our lives. The way I kind of think of it is like a computer. You do these amazing things on the computer. I can edit this podcast. Actually, I'm not very good with computers. That's about all I can do. But in the background, you've got all the other stuff running, the processors, the memory cards, whatever it is. But you don't know they're running. They're just doing it out of routine. But if they weren't running, if they weren't working properly, you wouldn't be able to do all the amazing things you can do with a laptop. Likewise, we can kind of view the mundane things in life, your routine, as the kind of the base, the foundation, the structure for everything else that we are able to achieve. And when we think of it like that, well, the mundane isn't negative, is it? It's actually really important. It's essential, in fact. So we're going to dive into that today. Can we enjoy the mundane? Because I don't know, you might live a very different life to me. You might have a really exciting life where every day is different and, great. But I would go as far to say that for the majority of us, we do follow a routine because we have to. That's life. It's what we've got to do. But can we enjoy those little things? Not everything has to be striving for the next massive thing. So that's what we're going to get into. We've got this interesting article, some points that I've kind of put together and collected and collated over the week. So we're going to read it paragraph by paragraph. After each paragraph, we're going to break it down, look at some of the vocabulary, and establish the key points that it's trying to get across. So this is a great opportunity for you to do 3 things. 1, practice your listening skills. If you're just chilling, if you're at home, if you're commuting, whatever you're doing, listening is the most important part of this podcast. So just listen carefully and try to get the main points of what we're talking about. And if there is something that you don't understand, and I don't particularly talk about it, don't ignore it. Write it down and then come back to it later. Now, if you are watching along on YouTube or Spotify, read along with me, either in your head, but even better, read out loud with me or pause and repeat. And of course, thirdly, great chance just to look at some vocabulary together. So, you know what I'm going to say before we get into it. Grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, if you possibly can. Just relax, unwind, chill, enjoy the English language with me. Yeah, so if you are ready, feel free to pause now if you need a little break. I want to come back to it, but we're going to get into it. Here we go. Enjoying the mundane. Most of our days aren't exciting. And honestly, that's just part of being an adult. Studies in psychology suggest that more than half of what we do each day is automatic. Habits that run in the background without much thought. Because of that, the ordinary parts of life end up shaping our mood more than we'd expect. Simple, everyday moments can actually calm the brain, especially when things feel overwhelming. Instead of trying to make life constantly interesting, it helps to notice the small things that already keep us grounded. Great introduction, that paragraph, really well written. So it kind of starts off by saying what we were talking about at the beginning. Most of our days aren't exciting. Part of being an adult. I might be wrong there for you, but I'm talking it as a generalization. It says that most of what we do each day is automatic. And when something is automatic, it's done without conscious thoughts. We could think of it also like autopilot on a plane, that it just gets us to the destination. So a lot of what we do is just automatic, it's autopilot to get us to work, to start our day. And they kind of run in the background, like that illustration of the computer, without much thought. There's not much more going on, but they are important because it says that they shape or they mould or they dictate our mood for the rest of the day. And these simple everyday moments can actually calm the brain, especially when life feels overwhelming. When something is overwhelming, it's emotionally overpowering. It is over. It is too much. It's more than we can bear. And I noticed I do this. If I'm speaking completely candidly and honestly, if I've got things on my mind and I'm having to process some information, sometimes we've got to do that, haven't we? Just kind of compartmentalize things in life. I've noticed to do that, I do mundane activities. I'll clean a room in the house. I'll do the washing up. I'll get the hoovering done. I'll go clean the car. But why do I do that? Well, it helps to calm the brain. Helps us just to focus and establish kind of structure and order in our minds. So instead of trying to make life constantly interesting and keeping up with everything else, the mundane helps us to notice the small things and, interestingly, keep us grounded. And when we talk about being grounded, we're talking about being stable and emotionally steady. We're on the ground. We're on a solid foundation. So these mundane activities, we do them out of habit. But imagine if we lived every day and we weren't grounded. We weren't stable. We weren't emotionally steady. It would be a bit of a train wreck, wouldn't it? Goes on to say, most mornings feel the same. Make a cup of tea. Scroll a bit. Get dressed. leave the house. We often rush through it without paying attention. But noticing little things can change the feel of your whole morning. You don't need to do anything dramatic. Just paying attention to the warmth of your mug or the quiet moment before stepping outside can slow you down in a good way. These small pauses give your mind a chance to line up with your body instead of lagging behind. Now, what's your morning routine? Do you wake up and make a cup of tea? Do you put the tea bag in first or the milk first? That's the big question. Let me know in the comments. If you're making a cup of tea bag first, milk first, and then water. This is a big debate in England. My wife and I were talking about this the other day. We disagree. So I'm going to give you a chance to write your answer now. What is the correct order of making a tea? Then I'm going to tell you what I believe is the correct answer. Okay. I believe that the correct order of making a cup of tea is tea bag, water, and then milk. My reasoning for this is if you add the milk first, you've committed to how much milk is in that tea. It might be wrong. If you add the milk afterwards, you're in full control of that cup of tea, my friend. You know, you can stir the tea bag a little bit more if you want it a bit stronger, or add a little bit more milk if you want it weaker. To me, there's no other answer. But I'm more of a coffee drinker anyway. Do you scroll a bit? Let's be honest, you scroll a bit on social media. You get dressed. You leave the house. You often do all of these activities. We rush through it. If you do something in a rushed way, it's quick, without much thought, paying attention. But we're talking about noticing. Taking notice of the little things can perhaps change the feel of our whole morning. It doesn't always need to be dramatic. Now, when we talk about things being dramatic, they're big or attention-getting, trying to grab attention. Pay attention to the smaller things. For example, you make a cup of tea. It's a little bit chilly here in England, so one of the greatest things about a tea or a coffee in the morning is the warmth of your mug. Just putting your hands around that, and you get that kind of, that warmth that comes through it, that radiates through your whole body. And that's something to be appreciated. Or perhaps, you've got a crazy day commuting to London. Just taking that moment and just, a bit of fresh air, looking out the window, just taking a moment, a bit of quiet before stepping into the rat race can slow you down in a good way. Or perhaps waking up, maybe you wake up 30 minutes earlier and you just poodle around. You just do little bits and bobs. It's just calming your mind. Remember, it's keeping you grounded. And I love the way it is these small pauses, a pause or a break, it gives your mind a chance to line up with your body instead of lagging behind. Now, if something is lagging behind, it is falling behind. It is not keeping up. Sometimes it feels like that, doesn't it? That our body's left the door for the morning, but our mind is still in bed. Well, those little habitual, mundane activities, they help us just to keep it all together. So our mind leaves with our body rather than lagging behind. A lot of us grow up thinking happiness comes from big events, big trips, promotions, major changes. But psychologists keep pointing out that long-term satisfaction actually comes from the things we do every day, the routines we repeat, cooking, tidying, walking, sorting things out, build the basic structure of our lives. When these everyday habits feel manageable, everything else feels easier too. It's not about loving chores, it's about making them less chaotic. And it's true, isn't it? A lot of us, when we grow up, from a child to an adult, you think that happiness comes from the big things in life, making money, cars, big trips, promotions, major changes. We're not going to lie, they do bring an element of happiness. Can't deny that. But psychologists are pointing out that long-term, rather than short-term, long-term, over a long period of time, long-term satisfaction is a steady, lasting sense of contentment. Well, that comes from the things we do every day, the routines we repeat, because they build the basic structure, the organisation of our lives. I like the way it says, cooking, tidying, walking, just sorting things out. If you're sorting things out, You're just organising things, putting them in their place. Like in my office, for example, this afternoon, I've got to sort a few things out. I've got to do a few bits on my tax return, blah, blah, blah. Just sorting a few things out. These, in the long term, if we have everything in order, is what brings an element or a large part of our happiness. And life feels a little bit more manageable. If something is manageable, it means that we can manage it. It's easier to handle, easier to control, easier to get through. So it's not about loving these mundane activities. Like, nobody loves washing the dishes. But we just make them less chaotic, less stressful, and that they give our mind chance to just calm down a little bit. There's also a practical, scientific reason that everyday tasks can feel weirdly soothing. Repetitive actions, washing dishes, folding laundry, sweeping, activate parts of the brain that lower anxiety because these tasks don't demand difficult decisions. They give the mind a break. They are predictable, and our nervous system relaxes when it knows what's coming next. That's why doing something simple can feel surprisingly calming after a tense day. Now, this is interesting. So we're bringing a scientific element into this now. That there's a scientific reason that everyday tasks feel weirdly soothing. Now, when we talk about something being soothing, it's calming. It's relaxing. I always like to think that this podcast can bring an element of soothing to a stressful day. But it says that they're weirdly soothing. When we talk about it being weirdly soothing, it's kind of odd. For example, if you take folding the laundry. Jobs don't get much more boring than that. But there's something weirdly soothing about it. What on earth? I don't know, you think of cleaning the car. It's not a pleasant job. But I feel relaxed after I've done it. Why is that? Because these activate, or switch on if you will, parts of the brain that lower anxiety. Because they're not demanding much of our brains. There's no difficult decisions to fold in the laundry, is there? So it's giving our mind a break. We're coming back to that word, predictable, consistent, easy to anticipate. And our nervous system, that is the body system that manages stress and relaxation, well, it relaxes when we know what's coming next, when we know exactly what we've got to do. There's no thought. And that's why doing something simple can feel surprisingly calming. So, you had a stressful day at work. It's been tense. You're dealing with all of your work colleagues and they're driving you mad. You come home and you cook a meal. You come home and you do a bit of washing. We don't love those jobs. But the truth is, there's something calming about it. There's something relaxing. And that's why we can enjoy the mundane. Perhaps we can look forward to the mundane because they are that reset of our nervous system. Finding comfort in mundane tasks doesn't mean pretending they are thrilling. It just means using them to your advantage. Making your bed, cooking something basic, or taking a short walk can reset your brain a bit. When you are not racing through everything, these tiny tasks create just enough space to breathe and feel like you're back in charge of your day. So it's interesting here. We're not trying to kind of deceive ourselves into pretending that these tasks are thrilling. And something is thrilling, it's exciting. No, that's not what we're trying to say. We're not trying to say, make sure you find washing the dishes thrilling. If you're not, you're doing something wrong. Not at all. What we're talking about is using these simple activities to our advantage. When you use something to your advantage, it's in a way that benefits you. Because what we're doing is when we're resetting our brain a bit, when we're not racing through everything, these tiny tasks or jobs, they just create a little bit of space in our day, in our life, in our mind, just to breathe. Because when you're at work, I don't know what you do for work. I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments, what do you do for work? But those moments where we just get on with the mundane, it's like it just creates a little bit of space in life, in our day, and you take charge of that. you're in control again. And because of that, you just got some space to breathe. And that's why you kind of get the idea that our nervous system just relaxes. It regulates because we're in control. One of the nice things about the mundane is that it's always there. You don't need money, special equipment, or perfect conditions. Everyday actions, boiling the kettle, opening a window, stepping outside for a minute, naturally give your brain a break from the constant noise of life. Once you start noticing these moments, things feel a little less chaotic and a bit more balanced. I love this point, and this is why I think you can just enjoy the mundane, because it's a constant in life, isn't it? As it says, the nice thing about the mundane is that it's always there. And this is true whether for good or for bad. If you don't do the washing up, you come home in the evening, it's going to be there. You don't do the ironing, it's going to be there. So that does kind of tell us that there is an element of staying on top of these mundane activities and keeping in control of them, because once you don't, then they just become a stressful thing that you just don't do. But the truth is, we don't need money, don't need perfect conditions or circumstances around the situation. No, they're there. Stepping outside for a minute, you don't have to worry about, I need this to do that. If you want to go for a little walk or just look out your window, you don't need anything to do that. And it gives your brain just a chance to have a break from that constant noise or non-stop information or stimulation. And what's interesting is once you start noticing these moments, once you start thinking about these moments that you've used just to reset your brain subconsciously, you kind of feel a little bit more balanced and you realise, wait, no, I am in control. Life isn't as crazy as I thought it was today. Yeah. It's an interesting point that, isn't it? That maybe we need to start looking out and appreciating those mundane activities just a little bit more. In the end, enjoying the mundane just means making the most of the life you already have. You don't need bigger routines, just a slightly more aware one. The ordinary takes up most of our time, so it has the biggest impact on how we feel. When we notice it, instead of fighting it, life becomes a little easier to manage. These moments might not be impressive, but they are the ones that quietly keep us going. And I like this because isn't it true that, the way, everything is now is about buying the next thing, moving on to the next thing. We achieve one thing, it's getting on to the next thing. But when we just look at the mundane, when we just look at enjoying those things, we just make the most of life we've already got. And perhaps what it means is just being more aware of those little things in life that we do enjoy. Aware, to be consciously paying attention. As we said at the beginning, the ordinary takes up most of our time, doesn't it? So in essence, that has the biggest impact, influence or effect on how we feel. So perhaps we can notice it instead of fighting it. They're not impressive moments, they're not groundbreaking, they're not something to tell people at work, but they are the ones that quietly keep on running in the background, that keep us going. And that's why we can enjoy the mundane. And after reading this, preparing this episode, I think I do enjoy the mundane. I do enjoy going out cleaning my car. I have a weird thing about I enjoy cleaning the kitchen. Not because the job is thrilling, by any means, but it's calming, it's resetting. So I should almost be grateful for those mundane moments. I don't know. Maybe you're on the same page as me. Maybe you're not. But I think sometimes we can be so focused on what's coming next. We just enjoy those little things in life. So I thought at this point, a good exercise to do for this and for your English is think about your routine. What is your routine? You can tell me about it in the comments if you want, but what's your routine? And what mundane activities could you show a little bit of more appreciation for? Like for me, waking up and making a coffee in the morning, I put the kettle on, I've got the sound of the kettle boiling. I don't go on my phone. I look out the window. And I didn't really know I was doing this. I didn't even really know that I enjoyed this, that I liked it. But looking back now, I realise that if a morning goes by and I don't do that, my day's a little bit more stressful. My day's a little bit more unenjoyable. So that's something to appreciate. What's one mundane activity you appreciate about your routine? Please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. What's a mundane activity that you want to appreciate, that you want to give a shout out to? You know what I mean? Making the bed. Let's give it a bit of appreciation. Washing the car. You might be listening to this podcast and think, Gideon, you're completely wrong. I hate all of these activities and I will never enjoy them. It's up to you. Whatever you want. So let's just do a little review of just some of the words that we looked at there. So we looked at mundane. You know, when we talk about the mundane, it's the everyday parts of life that, you know, the routines, the habits, the tasks that make up part of our day. Overwhelming, it is emotionally overpowering. To be grounded means to be stable and emotionally steady. If we're lagging, we're falling behind, we're not keeping up. Something is manageable, it's easy to handle or control. The nervous system, the body's system that manages stress and relaxation, to use something to our advantage in a way that benefits us. What else do we have? Oh, impact, strong influence or effect. Yeah, there's some good words in there. So I would recommend, keep going through this podcast, watch it again, listen to it again, and really isolate key vocabulary that we went through. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I found it quite an interesting one to prepare. I did enjoy it because it just gets me thinking a little bit about, just enjoying the little things in life. It's not always about what's coming next, is it? Very good. So yeah, I hope you have a good week ahead. Whatever you're going to do, whatever you've got planned. Don't forget, please always say hello in the comments. I love it when you say hello, you introduce yourself. You guys leave some lovely comments. I really do appreciate it. I always read through them all. And as you hopefully are aware, I do try to respond to as many as possible. Sometimes a week or two late, but I do try to get back to you. But I really appreciate your comments. I find them so encouraging. And also, you leave some honest feedback, which is great because it helps me to keep on improving. So please do leave a comment. And if you have got to this stage of the episode, the secret word I would like you to leave in the comments is mundane. Mundane. Mundane in the comments if you did get to this part of the episode. So very good. Here in England, in the southeast of England, I am hoping that it gets a little bit warmer because it's been a bit cold recently. This week has been very drizzly and rainy. I've been doing a little bit of work outside, so I've spent a lot of my week absolutely soaked, and I've kind of had enough of it. But tomorrow, I am driving to Cornwall with my wife. My nan lives in Cornwall. She lives in a beautiful town called St Austell. So my wife and I are going to visit her for a couple of days, and I'm very much looking forward to that. One, get to see my lovely nan, but also it's just a change of scenery. We love just driving down there, chuck on some podcasts, some music. We're listening to Olivia Dean at the moment. If you know, you know. She's incredible. So yeah, looking forward to that. So it should be a very nice weekend. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to give it a like, share it with all your friends, family and pets. And I'll see you all very soon. Have a good one, guys.